Hey, happy Friday. This week OnePlus promised even better software support for its phones than Google offers for the Google Pixel phones. Amazon started firing many of its employees, especially those working on Alexa, and there's a magical new chip technology that will apparently improve laptop chip performance by up to 50%, if it actually works, that is. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. This video was sponsored by Ground News. Okay, we're starting the brief with Glass. Corning announced Gorilla Glass Victus 2 for smartphones and PCs and the like. As the successor to last year's new glass, Corning says that it will survive drops onto rough surfaces like concrete a little bit better, though the spec sheet doesn't seem that much different. Then Sony put out a new motion tracking system for the metaverse. You can pay $358 for some pucks that you wear via motion tracking bands on your body that translate your body's movement to a metaverse avatar. Okay. Next, Samsung announced two China-exclusive foldables as it has done in the past, which are higher-end versions of the Galaxy Z Fold 4 and Flip 4 with some golden highlights and touches and textures added, more RAM, and a ceramic back instead of glass. And on top of that, a Samsung executive this week also confirmed to Korean media that the Galaxy S23 series will be introduced in February. So not CES, but pretty soon after that. Next, there was some fuss out of China with at least 4 product launches from Xiaomi, Huawei, MediaTek, and more getting postponed, probably because Jiang Zemin, the former general secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, passed away. Both the Xiaomi 13 and 13 Pro and also the MediaTek Dimensity 8200 chipsets were supposed to launch this week, but got cancelled, and there are so far no rescheduled launch dates yet. Oh well. There was, as every week, also a bunch of new Elon news this week, starting with Neuralink, Musk's brain-computer interface company, with a show and tell event showing off some things and promising the first implants in someone's head within the next 6 months. Judging by Musk's usual estimates, that could mean anything from it never arriving at all to maybe arriving like 15 years later or something, but still pretty interesting, I guess. The genius man himself this week also decided to attack Apple over its 30% cut and put out allegations that Twitter would both be removed from the App Store and that Apple had stopped advertising on the platform, both of which appear to be mostly untrue so far. He also claimed that he would make his own phone if necessary, which is a hilariously bad idea, and then he went on to claim that he got a meeting with Apple CEO Tim Cook in Cupertino, which interestingly the Apple side has not confirmed so far. Oh, and as a cherry on top, the EU also told Musk to start cleaning up his platform, or he will be violating the Digital Services Act that will go into effect next year. A pretty wild, but I guess usual week in Elon Musk land. Oh, and as a wrap-up, here's a fun little pop quiz. Guess how many people still order DVDs by mail from Netflix? If you guessed 1.5 million people just in the US, just in the last year, well, congratulations. Pretty wild. Okay, that's it for the brief, and for my first story of the week, OnePlus appears to be wanting to go back to making good decisions again. What a relief. OnePlus said this week that it has a new promise to deliver 4 major Oxygen OS updates and 5 years of security updates to some new devices that it launches in 2023. This went down at a OnePlus community event in London, and apparently Gary Chen, the head of software products at OnePlus, said that this decision was partly driven by users who are keeping their phones for longer. And for context, people globally are indeed now keeping their phones for like 3 to 4 years on average, according to Strategy Analytics, so longer software support does make sense. So at a glance, this new update policy officially, at least on paper, now beats Google, who only guarantees 3 years of updates on Pixel phones, and it kind of matches Samsung with their 4+1 year support cycle as well. And that's pretty good. Of course, in reality, Google usually over-delivers on their software promise, and what's annoying about OnePlus is that this new promise will only apply to some of their new releases from 2023, and it only seems to focus on some high-end models, with lower-end devices probably still getting less support, unlike with Samsung, who generally updates their whole portfolio these days. Also, OnePlus has historically been really slow with their releases, so while a promise is still better than nothing, it might take them a really long time to deliver those updates, and they have not committed to monthly security patches either, so we just don't know much about their frequency either. Also, OnePlus together with Oppo are still banned here in Germany because of their legal dispute with Nokia, so that's pretty tough. There's no actual news about whether they can come back anytime soon or not, so that's not great, but I guess at least the software update policy does seem better now. Okay, and my second story of the week is that the layoffs seem to have arrived to Amazon as well, and Alexa seems especially hard hit. This week we've learned that Amazon has started making some cuts and that the first teams to be affected are the ones working on hardware-related projects like Alexa, Kindle, and Halo health tracking devices. Even more layoffs are expected in the future, although it's unclear who will be affected next. And part of this comes from the mind-boggling revelations from last week that Amazon's Alexa division alone was somehow on track to lose $10 billion this year. $10 billion of losses a year is an insane amount. That's as much as Mark Zuckerberg is spending a year on the metaverse, and everyone seemed to be completely freaked out by that. So yeah, it's a lot of money. And that comparison actually seems particularly fair, since just like how Mark Zuckerberg has the metaverse as his thing, Alexa was apparently Jeff Bezos' pet project as well when he still ran the company. Amazon does have insane cash flow, so I guess they can finance some big side projects if they want to, but that's still an incredible amount of money. We've also known for a while that the Alexa division alone had 10,000 staff working on it, which is more than the entire Twitter employee pool combined before Twitter fired the majority of them, and it's a little hard to know what the hell all of those people were actually doing with Alexa. I mean, the assistant did get support for new languages and features over the years, I guess, and has also had more hardware launches, but reports are that an all-hands crisis meeting took place in 2019 to try to turn the monetization problem around, and 3 years later, they still very clearly haven't. Amazon claims that it's still the earliest days of what Alexa will become, which seems a little hard to believe for a product that is now 8 years old. Voice assistants just haven't taken off like many people have originally predicted, and Google and Apple seem to have a structural advantage by being tied to your phone and by having access to all your user data. Without that, competing is a little bit tough. And instead, most of the excitement around AI has been moving towards generative AI like Stable Diffusion and GPT-3, which Amazon doesn't seem to be at the forefront of. Do you think that those generative AI applications will fare better than voice assistants, or are those overhyped as well? Let me know down in the comments, or if you're watching on Nebula, then tweet at me at TechAltar. Okay, and for my last story of the week, there's a new chip cooling technology that's supposed to magically improve your laptop's performance by up to 50%, and companies like Qualcomm are investing up to $100 million into making it happen. A company called Frore says that instead of using traditional fans and heat sinks, it has developed little chips called air jets that go on top of a regular chip or a heat pipe leading from it, and then can actively remove heat from them by vibrating or pulsing super fast. These are solid-state chips that generate their own airflow, and they're both way thinner than usual fans at 2.8 millimeters, while also being way quieter and having better performance too, because they promise to let you maintain higher clock speeds before throttling. Judging the validity of those statements is a little bit above my pay grade, and we don't know much about the cost or the manufacturing capabilities, but the good news is that both Intel and Qualcomm seem to believe them, at least to some degree. Intel has apparently been actively experimenting with the chips in their laptop designs and invited Frore's engineers into its labs in Bangalore for debugging and tuning, while Qualcomm, as we have said, has already invested $100 million, so they seem excited too. Also, the company says that their products are supposedly market ready too, whatever that means exactly. So let's see whether your next laptop will be marketed as having AirJet inside. Who knows? Now, to cover the news properly on this channel, I do a ton of research for each new episode, and one tool that I found extremely useful for that is my sponsor, Ground News. Ground News is a website and an app that aggregates news from around the world, but instead of just listing articles, it also contextualizes them with really helpful data. Right away, you can see all the sources reporting on a story and swipe through to read different articles from around the world across the political spectrum for each, and that way you can get the most well-rounded view of any given issue. Not only that, you also get a quick overview of whether a specific publication has a good reputation for factuality overall or not so much, as well as who owns those publications. I also really like the blind spot section that shows you your news stories that for some reason were mostly covered by only one side of the political spectrum, which means you can see news stories that you might have missed. With our news media being as polarized as it is, I think these tools are really valuable. And as a European, I also enjoy that you can choose what region you want your news to focus on, while you can of course pick the topics that you want to follow the most. It's a really nice experience. To check out Ground News, go to ground.news/Friday checkout or simply click on the link in the description. That's it. Thank you, and I'll see you next Friday.